Okay, here we go. Back at Perceptor again. I'm just going to finish him off. Hopefully have some fun doing it. Hi, handsome wretch. I'll start by inking in the buildings here. I kind of got him sort of on top of a hypothetical Cybertronian building, even though you don't usually see the tops of buildings look like this. For Cybertron, that's kind of the look I wanted. So that's what I'm doing. It's kind of like, you know, typical rooftop scene that you'd see Batman or, you know, Daredevil, Ninja Turtles, you know, characters like that usually perched up on top of. But at this point we've got our sniper, Perceptor. So I've got a little shaded spot underneath here. I'm going to darken that in. That's all we can see of our rooftop that we're on, but I'm going to kind of just follow sort of an imaginary vanishing point. It kind of goes off to the side here and just kind of create some of these abstract Cybertronian buildings. I sort of just kind of make them sort of random geometric shapes. Seems to do the trick. Not completely random, but random enough. That's all we're doing there. I kind of try to follow the perspective of the rooftop, even though everything isn't always going to be squared off. So kind of angle it up there, angle it up a little bit there. And sort of follow that over here. I kind of like illustrating scenes on Cybertron because you can just kind of make up the landscape as you go along. These buildings here kind of like, you know, just different shapes together. Whatever comes out of my head, I can just make it work. Kind of imagining some sort of connecting point here between the buildings, or in this one building, I guess. A little shadow underneath. We have Victory playing in the background, Transformers Victory, for anyone wondering. I got some new speakers for my computer here that are pretty nice, so figured I'd jump back to the computer to play some Victory. Have I always been good at coming up with stuff like that? I don't know. I don't know if I am now. I just do what seems right and seems to work. So if you want to call it good, then I suppose. I guess my first real issue that I did was Spotlight Blur, which was entirely on Cybertron. So I kind of had to jump in pretty quickly and just start doing it. I love all the painted backgrounds on the old animated cartoon, though they are a bit different than what you would see on like in the Marvel comic book, which I also loved. So I just kind of do sort of a hybrid of what I would imagine out of those two sources, references. I always like to make some sort of antenna at the top of the building. I don't know why, just works for me. You can kind of put a little texture in there if you want to. Do some, like, you know, in my mind, these little things coming across are some sort of window. Sometimes, you know, it can go vertical, sometimes horizontal. It's kind of implying, you know, some sort of viewpoint for somebody who might be in this hypothetical building here. Just kind of add a few of these. When the buildings are in silhouette, sometimes I can just black out the whole shape of the building and just leave some of these lines visible. Hi, Cherry Soda. That was the first comic you read? That's pretty cool. It was my first full published work, so I'm pretty proud of that one still. You know, I look back at it, and there's some things I would draw a little differently now, but overall, I feel pretty happy with it. I really enjoyed my fellow creative team members, Shane McCarthy and Joanna LaFuente. Love working with them. Out of focus there for a second. We seem to have one of these rounded dome buildings on Cybertron too, so I gotta throw one of those in. One of the things about drawing the Ironhide mini, I don't know how many of you read that, but it was fun to kind of do a similar thing here and kind of invent all these wild, well, I guess they're not that wild, but essentially just kind of geometrically shaped alien buildings, but I essentially got to destroy them or make them look like they had been destroyed. So that was kind of fun. Build it up, knock it down. All right. Alright, so we got a little dome top there. Let's do this. What was the first Transformers comic you all ever read? Mine would have been early Marvel, way back in the day. Probably not the first, but maybe the second or third issue. I can't remember for sure. I was so young. Let's do some implied, I think I'll do some implied buildings in the back that are actually silhouetted. Do like a little multi-layered effect here. I'm going to have my close buildings, which you can really see. I'm going to kind of darken some out that are set a little farther back. So we'll kind of even go do another couple here. We'll end up blacking that out. Black this out. Black this out. Megatron Origin, that goes back pretty far. Sins of the Wreckers, nice. Another Megatron Origin. That was the early days of IDW. Megatron Origin, you guys got to see the birth of that, I think the only appearance of Megatron's wild mane in that one. I was going to say Sin seems very recent, but yeah, Last Stand makes more sense. Let's see. Do a little inset piece here. Yeah, if not with Megatron, somebody else. And you never really see anything like that. Like remove the helmet and then there's something going on underneath. Similar to how every Prime seems to be able to retract his faceplate these days. So have another character that can sort of take off their helmet and reveal a little mane underneath, or whatever you want to call it. Let's throw some little windowy bits here. Yeah, I wasn't sure what I was looking at either. Is that what I think it is? But yeah, it's different. I'll do a little angled piece right here to kind of be parallel with that little section. What do we want want to do here? How about a little piece jutting out there? Because we can. I feel a little Bob Ross-ish, just making it up as I go along here. I'm talking about it. See, this song is starting to grow on me too now. What do I want to do with this? Let's make this into sort of a whole other layer here. Or at least a connecting piece there. Alright, we'll do one little kind of farther setback, dome-ish, dome-topped piece here. We'll black that all out. Maybe we'll have just a little visible stripe across the top. Alright, that feels good. I was drawing this last time. I forgot that the kind of glassy piece of Perceptor's chest plate here actually protrudes a bit. So I'm going to kind of add that in there, and we're just going to pretend that this angle makes sense. Just going in, basically, in towards the center. I think that's pretty good. Oh my, what was that? What was that sound effect? Holy smokes. It's like Transformers meets Looney Tunes going on back there. Just gonna kind of, as the dome kind of curves up, just add some little touches of texture. Freehand some of it. The lines get pretty light sometimes, but that's the way it goes. The further setback these things are, the lighter the detail I put into them. Although, I'll throw a few grooves right in here. I want this to look like it kind of has a beveled edge here, or whatever you would call it. Not just a flat bend, or a flat edge, squared off edge is what I'm trying to say. Throw a few more of these little ridges in here. And some over here. Alright, we're going to have a little pipe or something in there. Alright, we got a little rooftops there. I think that works. Hello, Dark Wizard. I'm going to do a little shine across the chest plate too. Another thing that Guido did when I looked back on it is he had kind of a little shine across the front in a few spots. And then inside the chest plate, there was kind of it's kind of dark with sort of implied circuitry going like down and across, like a little puzzle piece of circuitry going through there. So that's what we're going to do here. You can make or break them. Another thing that throws me off sometimes is like these are the angle of the chest plate is slightly kind of heading upward. It's not exactly straight up and down parallel, so that kind of changes the trajectory of what I want to do here, or it makes it look, at least for me, not as easy for the eye to just automatically follow. If it's just a symmetrical bit, it's easy to just kind of like follow the line left, follow the line right, up, down, whatever. But makes it a little more challenging. But that's okay. That feels okay for now. Alright, so I'm going to do kind of a night sky behind him. I don't think I want to do that quite yet. I'll start adding some heavy shadow on the figure. And darkening up some of the outlines. Or thickening them, I guess. You can see I've already X'd in a few spots here. But yeah, I talked last time I had planned to make the light source coming from above him, but I kind of thought later maybe I should have had it coming from below, but we're past the point of no return there, so I think it'll still look nice. It'll be a nice bit of contrast with the dark sky. I'm going to do that traditionally, and instead of just leaving it open. Like I've said before on these, if this were going to be a published piece, I would just leave that open, and the colorists are so great, they just drop in a starry sky and it looks amazing, and that's that. But for the sake of this being a nice, hopefully nice looking bit of original art, I'm going to do the old school comic style starry sky, like blackened in, and use some white out to make some stars. So we're going to hit shadow underneath here, underneath there, underneath here. You see I'm using this thick Copic here and not even coming close to the edge. I always go back with the brush pen after the fact and get the lines just right, but this is just for the large spaces. I'm going to kind of put a split there because the end bit of this is silver or chrome or whatever you would say. Oh, Star Saber's in trouble. All right. Hi, McGoogleheim. When I'm asked to design a cover, are you given creative liberties, or do you have to follow specific requests? Honestly, it depends. I've done a bunch at this point, and some of them are a specific request from either the writer or the editor, and some they will throw me the outline for the issue and say, see what you can come up with. On rare occasions, I'll get the full script, which I kind of enjoy when that happens. It's not often, because a lot of times they want your cover in for Previews magazine, but yeah, usually it's just the outline for the issue that I get, and I get to kind of read through that and see what I think would be a nice cover, and throw out a few suggestions to editorial, and they'll let me know what they like, don't like, and we'll go from there. All right. Like the one that, for better or for worse, people seem to know me for best, the All Hail Megatron Killing Joke cover was a specific request that was given to me. I didn't have any input on the idea. It was told to me exactly how it came out. Megatron holding reflector in the style of the Killing Joke comic book cover. So that was that. I just had to execute it. But, during the run of like Optimus Prime and Robots in Disguise, I would just every month I'd get the basics from John Barber on what he was going to be doing, and just kind of come up with some ideas, see what John likes, and then do whichever one is selected. I usually don't push hard when I do multiple designs. I don't push hard for one. I just let editorial give me their feedback and go with that. But every once in a while I'll come up with one that I feel really strongly about, and I'll either just submit that and see what happens, or just let it be known that that's the one I'd really like to do if everybody's on board. Alright, so we got the old Silver Shine. Do a little smaller one there. See, I forgot a big chunk here. Yes, that's what you do sometimes. And I've made the mistake of doing it the other way around too. Like I'll know in my head this one's going to be really good, and I'll just kind of do a quick little doodle of it and submit it, and they'll choose something else, and in my head I'm like, maybe I should have done a better job making that one I really liked look a little more polished, and essentially made a better case for it. think I'm going to hit some spots on his helmet here too. Just going to kind of wing it. But light's coming from up top, but I want it to be, you know, it's a dark scene, and I want to kind of have the darkness of the black pieces of his helmet stand out to some extent. So we'll just kind of add a little darkness to the very front of the helmet here. Not going all the way up, just about there. It's funny when you're doing this stuff and you kind of commit to a light source, you gotta kind of follow it through, even if, like, I was thinking about this earlier, I kind of darkened in, it seems to be the thing to darken in the underside of the nose a lot. And really, I've kind of got more of the light heading down at this angle, so I probably would have done that side all black and just kind of etched in that side, but that still looks fine. Now you'll notice it if you look, but most people would never really notice little tiny things like that. But those are the things that kind of stick in my head when I'm working on something. So I'm going to hit another bit of dark shadow here. I guess I'll go all the way to the edge there. I'll leave the side in some extent of light. Same way over here, he's got some front-facing pieces. You see, this kind of adds a little depth to it. Like I've said before, I used to leave my lines very open and kind of just let the colorist figure out the light source and, you know, do what they do extremely well. But if I want the black and white piece to be able to stand on its own a little more, I'll do some stuff like this to make it work. In my head, at least. It's like when you get the big dark spots in, sometimes you can just kind of go through with a little extra couple of hatch pieces there to just add another dimension to it. So similar to, let's see, over here I've got, this part is chromed on the front. So I've got that with sort of a little shine thing going on. So over here where it's red, I'm just kind of hitting a little, I'm kind of purposely keeping this light, just kind of getting a little spot here to kind of match up with that, but I don't want it to have the same like Kirby squiggle as the chromed part. Kind of give it a little separation there. I've been going a half hour already, huh? Time's flying. Must be all the excitement. I hope you all appreciate my humor. It's very dry humor. So this section here is red, but I'm still adding a few hard shadows on the underside and the opposite side of where I imagine the light is mostly coming from, the main light source. Alright. Here's one of these spots. Anybody who watched the last one, I was kind of not quite getting this side how I want it to be, so this is one of those nice areas where you kind of mess up and you can just fill it in with black. Nobody will ever know, except the handful of people who watch this. Yeah, I don't mind questions at all. When you sketch on the computer, do you just print it out on low opacity and sketch over the lines, or do you use transparent paper? Yeah, hang on. Let me get the jazz picture. I printed out on Bristol paper, right on the high quality Bristol, and I changed the color digitally to an extremely light blue. You know, back when this was all copied on a photocopier, they put those light blue lines on the paper because it won't get picked up on a photocopier. So I don't know how relevant that still is in terms of scanning art and things like that, but that's what I do. For when I do sketch on the computer, I print it in a very light blue and then ink right over it. This Perceptor was the same thing. I didn't get as detailed with the sketch for Perceptor. This one I got pretty tight. I don't know how well you can pick that up in the camera. It looks like you can see it a bit, but I got really relatively tight with the details on here. And then I'll go back in and ink right over that. I don't like to do 3 stages. I used to do like, oh, thank you. I used to do a like an extremely light blue on the computer, essentially just the rough layout. And then I still like to pencil traditionally over that light blue, and then I ink over the pencil. And it was like, I just wanted to eliminate one of those stages, so I just learned to make my roughs into a very light pencil. Get it to a point where like this all is far from perfect. Like I wouldn't hand this to an inker, but I know what it's supposed to look like, and all the placement is correct. So once I lay it down and start inking over it, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to make it look right. So that's kind of my strategy with that. But yeah, I don't use transparent paper or anything of that nature. I just kind of, I just do that. Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the question. So the underside of everything here, I'm going to just hit that in hard shadow all the way down. Leave a slight line between dark spots to separate the two. So somewhere along the lines here, this arm, parts of it are red, parts of it are black. I should probably look at that to get it right here. Interesting. I guess some of these from the shoulder down, at least in All Hail Megatron, it appears this was all black here. It's not exactly how I planned it out, but let's roll with it. I'll kind of hit some harder shadows over on this side. Oh, see, now we've got some repeat music from Headmasters. All right, this right here where I always call it the bicep kind of tilts back in that direction. We'll hit that with some shadow. And we'll just kind of hit the side of the arm here with some shadow. I'm trying not to overdo it, but I'm just playing around, having fun. I think I'll actually go all the way with this. Maybe I'll try this, and if it looks stupid, I'll just black it out. A little bit of this action here. Not overdone, just a little shine, kind of mix up the old style with the new. Master Guido does a nice job of all that. Have I always had an interest in being an artist? For a long time I have, yeah. I'm not sure exactly when I thought I might actually be able to pull it off, but I've enjoyed drawing about as long as I can remember. You know, I used to draw my toys back when I was a kid. So yeah, I've always enjoyed it. But yeah, I don't know when I decided I was going to really try to do it. A lot of it was school, actually, you know, like if any of you here, I know Anna, of course, is, but going through school as like an artist, the other kids, you know, they know what you do, they see you, they kind of fill your head with, at least for me, it was, my head was a little filled with maybe some overconfidence, because everybody was like, wow, you're really good, you know. Why are you even here? Why are you even in school? You should just drop out, go get a job doing comics. Which would have been terrible advice, because my first submissions to Marvel Comics were firmly rejected. I shouldn't say firmly rejected. I got a nice response back, basically like, you know, saying they liked my work. I don't know how many levels of different responses they had at that point. This was like 1995-ish. But, you know, I got the whole like, yeah, we like your work. We'd love to see more. Keep the samples coming. And, you know, maybe one day you can work for Marvel. And, you know, that was, for me, that was a little bit of a shot. I didn't, you know, my head was kind of filled with this whole concept of like, yeah, just go do it. What's the problem? And so when it didn't happen right away, I was like a little bit shaken. I was shook. But, yeah, I've always liked drawing as far back as I can remember. And I don't really know why. I don't know where that came from. Wow, interesting. Programming and cybernetics? That's pretty wild. Stumbled into art. Well, selfishly, I'm glad you took that route. Because I love looking at your work. But, yeah, that's interesting. So a late bloomer with the art. You'd never know it. So this bit down here, I'm pretty sure is black. Yes, it is. So we've got like multiple tiers of multiple levels, you know, little cut-ins and this and that to add a nice hard shadow to. I guess Transformers came out when I was 7 years old. I was 7 years old in 1984 when they came out, so those were the first things I actually remember drawing, where I would try to draw my Transformers toys, literally laying them on top of a piece of paper, tracing around the toy, you know, like you would trace your hand on a piece of paper, and then looking at it and trying to fill in the details with my markers, you know, fill in the outline. So that's how I got started. You know, that technique obviously didn't last too long, but that's the first memory I have of drawing. I'm just going to darken that all out. I don't want any light in that little crevice right there. You are all in darkness. I'm going to hit a little shadow over here. So many angles too on some of these guys. Like, which way would that really be facing? If I'm really trying to think about where the light's coming from, what would actually be in shadow? or have a touch of shadow. Good thing about comics and fantasy art is it doesn't need to be completely realistic and accurate. It just needs to look cool. Some of the coolest artwork you see is when the artist just kind of lets go and does their thing, and it looks amazing. You don't need to make sense out of everything. It should make sense on some level, but on another level, it needs to be dynamic and look cool, and sometimes you need to bend reality a little bit to make that happen. And I hit a nice hard shadow on the bottom third of these fingers. Submission pieces. I don't have my Marvel submission. I worked on another one years later that I didn't ever submit. I do have that. I don't really want to show it, but what do I have? I know I've got all my early submission stuff to IDW, Transformers stuff, and I do have some of my kids' drawings of Transformers that I could share, because there's no expectation of that being any good. I have a pretty sweet hot rod in a notebook on my bookshelf. The submissions I sent in, let's see, I actually sent in submissions to Image Comics, I think, of like Savage Dragon stuff that I do have kicking around somewhere. Some of the Marvel stuff I had was like it's a story that I kind of came up with out of my head, and it was like Rogue and Cable and Human Torch on a rooftop, and I want to say it was only like 2 or 3 pages. It really was not an impressive submission, but like I said, I just had this thought in my mind, like it wasn't going to be that difficult. It's like, you just say, hey, I'm ready to work. What do you got for me? And, I was just a kid. I wasn't thinking. And, that was a long time ago. It wasn't like today where you can go online or you can listen to a stream of an artist talk about their experience. It was like, all you know is what you read in like Wizard magazine or something like that. So I think I'm gonna put this little piece in the dark as well. All right, let's see if I can find any kind of date on this notebook here. Probably not. But here's a good clue for you. At the same age that I would have drawn this and felt proud of it, I also drew this. So it had to be like minimum, let's see, if Transformers came out in 84 and I was 7, so Hot Rod was 86. I must have been like 9 years old. There might have been some time separating those pictures, but let's see what I got here. This is not where I plan to go with the stream today, but yeah, this book is like filled with random drawings. Here's one. Who's that guy? Playing some sweet tunes. You can tell he's always been one of my favorites if you've followed my page, my Twitter. Oh, here's a good one. Several. Did I finish it? I did not finish it. But if you followed me, I've always said my favorite combiner group was the Protectobots. There's Hotspot, Blades, all 3 modes, and First Aid. So yeah, that is pretty old. Oh, you gotta see this one. And I'm gonna put this away, but got a Menasor. Anyway, yeah, my art interests kind of started with Transformers, and they took a trip all over the comic book world. Well, maybe not all over, but you know, there was a time, you know, once Generation 1 ended, and you know, my interest just kind of went more towards general comic book titles, mostly Marvel, Spider-Man, X-Men. I was, to whatever extent, into that early Image stuff, just because I loved all those artists. I kind of followed them to Image, and really got into that early stuff. More collecting than reading, but I enjoyed it to an extent. Yeah, I think they were with my father. My father visited us at some point, and I'm pretty sure he found them somewhere at his house. And he doesn't live in the house I grew up in, but he acquired those somehow, and brought them up one time when he came to visit. Thought correctly that I would get a kick out of it. Really using this theme song, huh? Oh, you're welcome. Like I said, I have no stake in that. You know, I wasn't trying to submit that to a comic company, and it's funny, for some reason, like, that stuff isn't, you know, embarrassing or whatever. There's no like shame in it. It's kids' drawings, but you know, the stuff where I was really trying and thought I was pretty good, and then you look at it years later and you're like, oh no, that's not good at all. That stuff, what little I have of it still is gonna stay under wraps. I've been really bad about keeping artwork anyway. Even the stuff I did like, I threw a lot of it away. I was kind of a messy kid. My room was always a mess, and you know, it would get to a point where I needed to clean, and I'd find stuff like under my bed and under dressers and things like that, and just end up throwing it away, which is kind of a shame, because there was probably some pretty good stuff in there. Or at least, if it's not good, it would have been fun to look at. me see here. I think what do I want to do next? Time we got, it's about 2 o'clock. We'll keep going for another hour or so. I should be able to finish this up in an hour. I hope. Alright. Let's add some little implied notches in these little knobs on his arm. I think I want to take this all the way to the edge, because when I do add the stars, I'm actually not going to come all the way in to the edge of him, the edge of his arm. So we'll just let that be all shadow, all the way to the edge. Alright, so let's just hit some harder shadows on this side of the black pieces here. It's going to be about time to refill this Copic marker. One of the things I hate about Copic markers is how quickly they run out of juice. Sorry, Copic fans. They're like $82 a marker, and you take 5 swipes with them and they're dead. So, not a big fan of that. But I still keep using them, so what's... it's my own fault. Let's see. Throw some darkness in there. Every once in a while, you get like a little inadvertent marker stroke, like this little action right here. It happens a lot with brush pens, that it's just got an interesting texture. And you just kind of accidentally create a little cool mark for yourself. I like when that happens. So we're just going a little bit shadow shine crazy here, because we can. Alright, that feels pretty good. What else is black on this guy here? His treads, of course. His hands are black too. Kind of forgot that. Alright, we're just gonna go straight up fill these tracks right in. Maybe add a little scuffing with the brush later. Use the thin end. These the little gears or whatever they are inside the treads there on the design piece, it looks like the space between is just a flat thing. You can't really see, it's not open, I guess I should say. So I think I'm going to leave it that way because I like the way that looks. We'll scuff it up a little bit to make it look like it's part of some tank treads, but I'm going to leave it sort of flat like that. Now I'm noticing that I didn't add them on the other leg. So since the hands are black, which I didn't realize, I'm just going to add a little bit of extra darkness on the middle section here. And I'm going to do a little bit of the, that sort of like feathering or whatever you call it. Where I add a little gradient to it with the #1 pen. Go all the way with that. That all the way in the dark. That all the way in the dark. And we'll have there'll be a shadow coming from under the gun here, so we'll put that in the dark. So there we go, just add a little bit of that type of action here. Accidentally putting hands on backwards. Not that I can remember, but I'm sure it'll happen one of these days. Sometimes when there's a weird pose or position, or you've got multiple robots in a picture and you've got limbs sticking out every which way, you kind of have to look at it a few times and like, wait, is that guy's left hand? That guy's right hand? What is that? Before you can actually fill it in. Alright, so I'll have to hit, I'll put the front of the piece that's facing whatever his target would be. It's going to be kind of where the shadow is falling there. So we'll roll with that. Try to keep some of those separation lines in there. I don't imagine Perceptor's the type to want to get too grungy, but I think I'll still throw a little bit of a few scuff marks on him. Seems like he'd be a bit of a neat freak, doesn't he? Yeah, that sounds logical. I can go with that. New head cannon. New head cannon acquired. All right, let's get some of the little shine on that sniper rifle too here. Start at the front. Hit a line at the top, maybe a couple of lines, a thicker one and a thinner one. So just follow the top of this rifle all the way from the barrel. A lot of this is rounded, which is nice. It looks more natural, this type of shine I find looks more natural on a rounded surface. You can see where it gets flat here, it's kind of, I don't know. It looks fine, but I just like it better on the rounded surface. Hit a thinner bit with the just with the number one. So when it gets to the bottom, we'll make the line a bit thicker. Obviously, there's more of a shadow there. Still leaving some space at the bottom. And this one will double line it. So this part will make it pretty much all in shadow there because of the way it bends. This part kind of bends under a little bit. We'll let that happen there. Get a little shadow under there too. So we're going to double up that one with the brush pen. Might be a little overkill, but whatever. I like it. It's my picture. I do what I want. Alright, we'll hit a little bit on this little piece that kind of goes down there. Do some of this because why not? So a little heart shadow under there. Alright, he's looking pretty good. Oh boy. I like it and it's my picture. It's my party and I'll cry if I want to. I know what I want to do. Just going to add a little secondary kind of shine lines there. I'm going to come back with some white out up there because I'm not really thrilled with how it turned out. So I'll edit that a bit. Put a thicker line around the bot symbol here. Alright, I think I want to, let me take a look at this real quick here. Yeah, I think I want to add some little fun things. Some of the Marvel style stuff I've been doing for, not Regeneration, what is it, Transformers 84. I kind of work some of this action in here. So I'm going to do a little bit of that too on these planes that are kind of headed towards the shadow area. Just going to kind of add some of this. But this, I'm not going to put the whole plane in shadow. Just going to kind of do similar to what I was doing there and add, you know, make it just part of that in shadow. That'll give room for that little shine there. You just create the little splash there with the brush, with the thicker brush. I'm just darkening a little spot around it. And it looks kind of cool, I think. Alright, I'm going to make myself a little ink mark, very thin, right around here. This is where the kind of the stars are going to turn into more of like the atmosphere. So from this line above will be all dark. Down below it'll be light. And I'll try to put a gradient in between. I do want to erase what little pencil I had left on here. Where was it now? Over here, around the buildings. Right over here. Alright, I never darkened in these setback buildings here. I'll have to hit that real quick. See, there's 22 people in here according to my screen, which is good. Thought for a second I was boring everybody to tears, but apparently enough of you felt like hanging around and watching. How many of you are working while you have this on? If you feel like answering. I haven't quite mastered that art myself. If I put a stream on, I've tried to a few times while I'm working, I just don't get any work done. I just watch the stream. Oh, nice. Writing while watching. A lot of you all are working. That's cool. Heading off for your night shift. Technically in class. Wow. That's exciting. Remote learning, I'm sure. Alright, so these far setback buildings, we'll just kind of darken that in. We can actually add more later if we feel like it. Oh, stay-at-home mom, very nice. That's as hard a job as any. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take an older brush pen that's a little bit frayed, and I'm going to just kind of make a little messy line right around Perceptor here. Outline him a bit. I want that kind of texture in the line here. I don't want it to be straight and definitive. I want it to be a little textured and a little wild. Of course, now it's operating well on me. What are you doing, pen? You're supposed to be old and frayed. Yeah, that's a little better. Get with the program. Huh. First aid sketch card, that's nice. I can get behind that. I can also get behind, you know, hating myself once in a while for some of the decisions that I make. So, you know, I've been there. I'm going to get a little closer to these background buildings, but I'm still not going to quite go up against them. You know, draw the line right up to them. I'm going to keep a little separation, but I want it to be obvious that they're set back there quite a ways. Alright, so here where I made my little line right there, so I'm going to try to get a little bit of a gradient. Maybe I will, I've got a little piece here I probably should have just left alone, but I'm going to put a little darkness in there. Take my Copic and hope it has enough juice to get all around this picture here, all around the night sky. So I'm just going to leave that nice frayed edge where I got it good here, and just make my way around the picture, darkening out the night sky. Well, luckily, a lot of this ink dries pretty quickly. The part that's slightly terrifying sometimes is like, to me, when you start laying down these thick lines, thinking, did I make the right decision? Because, you know, you can white out a little bit here and there, but once you're doing this, you are in it. Your decision is made. Oh, look at this thing is running out on me now. Let me see if my other one has some juice in it. Oh yeah, that's better. There's definitely going to be time for a refill on both of these when I'm done. Sometimes with the Copics too, I wind up going over it twice, which I might do with this, because you know most of the colors when you go over it twice, it just darkens it up a bit. It's the same with the blacks. I prefer not to see all the marker strokes along this. Alright, so I'm going to go back to my frayed brush pen. Just kind of like, similar to the little shine effects, I'm just going to kind of lightly try to sort of carry a line straight down. Have it kind of lightly, you know, create somewhat of a gray gradient as it heads down towards the atmosphere. Let's press a little bit lighter. Bob Ross vibes. All right, I'll take it. After doing that recent Grimlock, I almost want to put like a big lightning bolt across the sky, but it's kind of too late for that. And I don't think they have lightning on Cybertron, so we're going to skip that. But now I'm going to just kind of darken in some of the lines. See, the good thing about Copics is that alcohol, once it goes on the paper, it dries pretty quickly. You're not going to smudge it. You know, back when I would use India ink on stuff, it'd be, you know, you'd have to wait forever for that to dry. So I'm going to go back to my straight edge here and hit some of these longer planes, longer lines with the number 5 micron. Just kind of thicken that up. I like to do coloring once in a while when I can. Basically, the thing with coloring for me is like I'm not nearly in the same league as a lot of the colorists that I work with. So while it can be fun to play around and experiment and stuff like that, I find that most of the time I would much rather just have one of them work with me and, you know, have a real nice polished look instead of the look of somebody who's still trying to figure this out, which is what I am as far as colors go. So, like those, I don't know if you've ever seen the kind of Marvel style images I was doing like last year at some point. I made a sketchbook out of them. Some of you are probably sick of seeing or hearing about, but you know, that I'm just basically doing flat color and adding a filter to get the kind of halftone pattern. And you know, that's very, very simple. That's definitely something I can handle. But you know, if it's something that's going to have all kinds of shines and gradients and effects and all that, I'd rather have somebody that really knows what they're doing work with me on it. Most of my like convention prints are done with somebody else. Usually John Paul Beauvais, or you know, occasionally I'll work with some other folks, but I'll leave the coloring up to the professionals. So this thick line kind of separates the character from the edge. I'm going to leave it thin where my little shine is because that seems to make sense, doesn't it? The weird thing about one of the weird things about doing all these straight lines is you don't usually get a lot of variance in the line weight along the edge. See here you can I'm kind of doing that. With like an organic shape, you'd have it more like, you know, thicker and thinner along the curve, depending on what you're doing. But for a lot of these guys, for me, I like with the straight lines to just keep it pretty consistent. Another reason to do all this thickening of the lines to separate foreground items from the background. This gun is overlapping them, so I don't want it to, like, when your eye looks over this, kind of just put all that together. I want to separate it a little bit, so, you know, I'll add the thicker lines around the gun. I might use the number 3, but we'll see. Oh boy, colored pencils, huh? Good luck with that. Oops. That's a nice reason for using some whiteout later. One of the things I do, I don't know if you all do it, but I have a little note, a little piece of paper on the edge of my drafting table here, and I'll just, when I'm working on something, if I do something like that, like right here, I went over that line, I'll just make a little note. We'll put line above knee. Then when I go back with my whiteout, or even when I scan it, I'll look at that little list and make sure I hit those little errors, fix them up. Zombie Prowl, do you go by Zombie Prowl on Twitter? Or do you have what's your Twitter name if it's different? Thank you, handsome wretch. Nice talking to you. Have a good day at work. Be safe. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Talk to you again soon. Alright, I'll have to look you up and see what you're working on here. Alright, so I'll take a break from that for a second with my nearly dried out Copic to go back through and hit a second layer on there. I don't know if you can pick up on there how it, like, you know, it's a little lighter here than it is down there. I want to kind of darken all that in. The black space is a little smoother. That's a good thing. Although with outer space, it might not be bad to have some texture going on there. I used to do all my black spaces with Sharpie, but they kind of have like a bluish, purplish tint to them. I like the solid gray black of the Copic markers better than the Sharpie. But so we'll see, it's not all complaining about Copics today. They really get mileage out of that theme song in this show, don't they? I've heard it played within the show several times. We are taking our sweet time here today, aren't we? It's already 2:45. Better hurry up. I want to finish this thing. I thought I'd have time to spare. I'm not going to rush it, but we should be able to make the end on the stream. Is that actually your ringtone? All right. I have to say, for myself, out of the Japanese shows, I like the Headmaster theme best, but this one is growing on me, I have to admit. There we go, that is a little better. Anything to separate the different bits is good. Oh, Bunny, you were a Perceptor voter, huh? That's nice. Worked out well for you. Alright, let's throw in some darker lines around the leg here. This one's really probably the most in the foreground out of any of them, so I want to make sure it stands out. You need that little separation from the rest of the content. And instead of switching pens, I find I can just press a little harder here, a little lighter there. And where there's treads, I'll try to put a little separation just to kind of reinforce where they separate. I don't know how much you can pick up on that or not, but there it is. I gotta add the little gears in this one before I forget. Copics definitely can do some amazing things. I'm continually impressed by the results. I just have been disappointed by, how do I want to put it? Just how quickly they wear out, I suppose. No clever way to put it. Just run out of ink so fast. It's one of the reasons I don't work in color. People always ask if I can do a full color commission, but I don't do that. Like with the refills, you can get a lot of time out of them, but I don't want to have to refill the pen every other page I do. Yeah, they're a big investment. It cost a pretty penny. Alright, let's darken this up here. I think I made it most of the way around them. Got the important parts for the most part here. Every time I hear that youthful voice, I think it's Daniel. I don't know if it's the same voice actor. That was Daniel in the Headmasters cartoon, but it sounds very similar. Yeah, I've been lucky to not have too much spillage anytime I've refilled my Copics, but the thought is always there. Like if I bump this table right now, everything's going to be covered in black ink. Alright, so I want to add that heavy shadow under this little edge here. And then maybe bust out the number 3 to hit the edge of the foreground building. I'll probably end up fiddling with this a little bit after the stream. Maybe I'll go over my 3 o'clock time limit a little bit here just to finish, but I'll get most of it done here. I want to get the gun in the number 3 also. Yeah, I've said before, watercolor is something I'd love to play around with. I just haven't made the commitment to doing it, but it feels like something that I would enjoy. Alright, yeah, so I want to hit some separation on, like, you know, you get the outline of the body essentially separating him from the background, but then little bits of him that shouldn't meld together to the eye. Like, you want each section of him to kind of separate itself a little bit, which I think we've achieved for the most part here. So maybe right here I want a little thicker line there. Definitely up here. And definitely the weapon, I want to hit a thicker line around that. Such villainous laughter. I know you've got this show, which comes after Master Force, which comes after Headmasters. I haven't watched much of any of the shows other than Headmasters, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of continuity between them. It seems like, you know, it's a whole new cast of characters for each one. And maybe once I go through and watch the full however many episodes of each series, maybe there will be some smooth transitions, but you go from, like, you know, Fort Max and the Headmasters are like the main star of the show in Headmasters, and then you got God Jinray, and now you got Star Saber. Like, is there a passing of the torch, or is it just kind of like, hey everybody, now this guy's the leader? I've noticed a lot of people using watercolors with microns. Benji Abbey. I'm not open for commissions right now, but if I do, I'll announce it on one of my social media channels, or probably all of them. Instagram, Twitter, most likely. Do not like Facebook, barely use Facebook. Though I am on there. My wife pretty much provides all the content for my Facebook page just by posting photos constantly and tagging me in them. But I don't post a lot of artwork on Facebook. Alright, so let's hit some, not too many, because I think Percy is going to keep himself pretty pristine here, but I want to hit a few little kind of little scuff marks. I mean, you kind of can't help getting a little bit scuffed up being a Transformer, being in a 4 million year war. Hit a few of these random little detail spots that are totally unnecessary, but sometimes make a cool effect. The treads are definitely going to be a little scuffed up. I mean, they're tank treads, come on. Probably go back and add some of this after the fact as well. Like, you figure that they're going to have these little scratches all over them, but sometimes I try to think about like where light's going to catch a few of them. And sometimes I just kind of go random. Like near the corners and edges, feel like obviously that's where they're going to get scratched up, but yeah, I think I'm going to just kind of let this go at this point and switch over to the whiteout. Hit some stars in the sky here. All right, I don't know if you can see on there, but the black is much more consistent and smooth after going over it twice. Less separation between the brush pen and the Copic. So I'm going to get out my whiteout. I just use this Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Just got a very thin brush here, not as thin as you can get, but it'll work for everything we need to do here. And I have that little scrap paper that I mentioned earlier. I've got that up at the top so I can kind of like wipe off excess paint up there, and then just kind of like very gently hit. Can you even get that? I'm not on camera there. Just hit some spots, create some stars in there, kind of go random. Maybe some bigger than others, some more tightly clustered together, some farther apart. You can get a little starburst if you want it. Ooh, got a little clump of paint there, that's not good. You know, hit a few. Whoa, see, that's a big one. We'll turn that into a starburst here. Just kind of lightly brush up, lightly brush down, left, right, and then, you know, just some little ones kind of coming out the diagonal spots here. There you go. See, that's covering up your mistakes right there. Happy accidents, right? Happy little accidents. So I hit some regular stars over here. Again, different sizes. Going off the camera again. Focus, focus. tight cluster over there. Sometimes Cybertron is drawn or colored with the idea that there's an atmosphere in mind, sometimes not. I tend to like to see the thought that there is an atmosphere. At least there was at some point. I'll go right up to that edge because it's like a hard cut where the darkness stops and the character starts, or the open space starts. I'm just gonna, because I'm right-handed, I don't want to smudge all this, and I should have started left to right. I'm just gonna turn them upside down to get the other side here. Alright, a little star action down here. I mentioned before I had that, I used to have a Sharpie whiteout pen that was extra fine tip. That was really nice for stars. The brush, I find, I'm still kind of getting used to the brush, because like if you put any weight on it at all, it like, well, you know, beyond enough to make a slightly larger star, it really kind of gets jacked up on you there. I'm going to do the old rule of 3 with the starburst there. I'll put another one down here. Oh, look at that. This one's going to be a nice big fat one. The good thing about the whiteout is you just go back in with the black if you go a little bit too far. Hey there, Sketchy. Ba weep grana weep ninny bong. Oh, that's right, we got a sniper style Perceptor here from All Hail Megatron. Always be a special story to me. It's where I got my first work on All Hail Megatron. So this stuff takes a little while to dry, so I won't be doing my corrections on the stream here, but once that is dry, I'm going to fix that little starburst over there, but I am going to be probably foolish and add just one more over here, maybe a smaller one. Usually that rule of 3 kind of works out. I like the way that looks. A long time ago I heard, you know, either the rule of 3 or just odd numbers are supposed to look better than even numbers. So I don't know why. I don't know who came up with that. I don't know what the logic is behind it, but that's what I heard, and it's stuck in my little brain, so I kind of stick with it. Let's get a few stars up here where the tape was. What did I write down earlier? Line above the knee, right. Just kind of fix that right there. I'm going to add a few little shiny bits up here on the chest plate. Maybe just a little. Just subtle little there. What else? I wanted to hit something else up here, and I can't remember what it is now. Oh well. It'll come back to me later. But here we are. Perceptor. All linked up. Like I said, I'll probably fiddle with this a little bit before I call it done, but essentially it's done. I'll just add some more scuff marks, maybe a few little details to the buildings down here. I'll fix the starburst that went a little crazy over there, but essentially that's what we're looking at. Let's get a good view of it, top to bottom. Perceptor up on top of a building, either about to take somebody out or he just did. So yeah, there he is. I think he looks pretty good. I feel pretty happy with him. As usual, I will share this on Twitter. I'll take a photo, share that. I'll scan it, share that. Anybody that wants to color it can color it. And I'll throw the original up on eBay. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching that come together. I enjoyed making it, and I really enjoyed interacting with you all. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Got to walk the dog in Massachusetts today. It's beautiful weather, so I want to get outside and enjoy a little bit of that. But yeah, thanks again, guys, for interacting and being a part of this. And I'll shoot for another one on Friday. I'll probably be working on that. I almost said Action Master, but Pretender Jazz. I don't know if you can make that out. I shared the sketch before it turned light blue on Twitter earlier today. So I'll probably be working on that Friday. Maybe around the same time. Maybe I'll switch it up a little bit. But I'll announce it on Twitter. And yeah, hope to see a bunch of you guys back. And yeah, everybody have a great day. Stay safe. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.